Hi guys, so for today's video I'll be giving you guys a breakdown of the biggest hand I've ever played. So just to give you guys some background info, I have been playing against this guy heads up for around 2 days. Lost around 10 buy-ins, which is about $50,000 because we are playing 25-50 heads up. But I managed to make a 20 buy-in comeback on the second day. And this hand was one of the last few hands that we were playing, and I think he was kind of tilting because he was re-raising a lot pre-flop with kind of marginal hands. Pre-flop, I decided to raise with 10-9-8-7 single suited, which is pretty standard, and we faced a 3-bet from Villain. And because of how wide he was actually 3-betting, I decided to go for the 4-bet. This is definitely not standard for heads up play 200 BBs deep. So I'll be pulling up Monkersolver to show you guys the optimal ranges for 3-betting heads up 200 BBs deep. So I ran this preflop simulation on how preflop should be played 200 BBs deep. And if you look at how when Villain decides to 3-bet us over here, we are normally only going to actually 4-bet aces, which is pretty standard, and some portions of hands like ace king king. You can see how it's a 4-bet 28.5% of the time and a call 71% of the time against a 3-bet. And maybe some portions of like ace queen queen, ace jack jack. So all these hands have like the ace blocker, which is really important considering how aces are a large part of Villain's 5-betting range over here. So you can see how he only 5-bets. He always 5-bets aces and some ace king king. So we want to hold an ace to block aces, which is really good. So if we look at our 4-betting range, we can see that 4-betting any hand without an ace is really bad because we only do it 2.4% of the time. And even these hands, they tend to be double suited a lot. There normally shouldn't be any single suited hands in here other than these outliers. 4-betting any hand that doesn't have an ace and isn't double suited is definitely not standard, basically because of how we don't block 5-betting ranges. So in this case we have 10-9-8-7, and you can see how Monkersolver only wants to 4-bet these hands when they are double suited. But for the sake of the video and for the sake of the post-flop simulation that I ran, we'll just assume that the hand that I'm holding is double suited, so we can run the post-flop simulation easier later. Okay, so back to the hand. We face a 3-bet and we decide to 4-bet, and Villain decides to call. So this tells us that he definitely doesn't have aces in his range because he would definitely 5-bet us for value at this point. And the flop is jack hearts, 7 diamonds and 5 of spades, which is a pretty decent flop for us. We have a pair and a big rep because 6, 8, 9 or 10 would basically give us the nut straight. And in Omaha, straight draws are more valuable when there isn't a flush draw on the board because our outs will be clean, and there isn't a flush draw possible currently right now, so we are very happy with our straight draw. After the flop, Villain decides to pot, and is probably not going to fold to a jam, I suppose, because of how he's committing himself. So now we have a decision. We know that our hand is too strong to fold right now, and we are okay with getting all the money in. But is calling or raising actually better? So based on the preflop Monkersolver ranges, I ran a post-flop simulation of the optimal way to play the hand. So let's look at what Monker thinks when we have a hand like 9, 8, 7, 10, and he donks into us. And so we can see that most of the time it's a raise all in. But I think the 7 is the difference maker in this hand because we have a pair. We block top 2 pair, which may want to lead into us and get value from us, especially when we look like we have a hand like aces. So you can see how I think when we have aces, right, and he donks into us, okay, so it's a fold 52% of the time, which makes some sense because most of our aces don't really have any backup, so like random aces with just like random side cards. But if we have a hand like ace ace 4 6 with a straight draw, right, it's always an all in because we have some straight draw outs, and we have set outs for sure when we hit an ace, and we have like 2 pair outs. Like if he has jack 7, then we can hit a 5 and we still counterfeit his 2 pair. So if we don't have a pair, we don't block top 2, some small portions of sets. And if we have a similar hand that doesn't have a pair, like let's say 4, 6, 8, 9, which has a ton of straight draw outs, right? But this hand shouldn't be 4 betting anyways. But we have decent equity and we can still fall on some turns, because if let's say villain pots into us right now, and you can see how Monkersolver decides to call with 4, 6, 8, 9 instead of like piling it in, because there are some turns that are just really bad for us that we can just fold. So if let's say we call and the turn was like the jack of clubs, right, and he shoves, we don't really have like great odds to call per se, because our hand is not might not be live. Our draw is now less valuable because some full houses beat us, like if he had a hand like Jack 7, Jack 5, or like 7 7, and we might just be drawing with a hand that is drawing dead. So you can see how it's a fold 31.2% of the time. But if let's say we had our original hand, which is 7, 8, 9, 10, and the same action happens, right, and he shoves into us, you can see it's a call all the time because of how we block like full houses, and we still have a decent draw. Okay, so back to the original action. He pots into us and we have 7, 8, 9, 10, and Monkersolver decides to go all in with our hand. So I actually think this is pretty good because of how we can get some better hands right now to fold. So if let's say he had an overpair that decided to call the 4-bet and he thinks he's good. So if let's say he has a hand like Queen Queen 6 6, right? Maybe with the double backdoor flush draw. So let's say he has Queen Queen 6 6 with hearts and diamonds, or like diamonds and spades. And he does block some straight draws with the 6 6, which might not really be very good for him, but he still has some setouts against a hand like aces. So 2 setouts with the Queen Queen 6 6 and 2 backdoor flush draws, and he might be overly aggressive trying to pile in the money right now with these hands. And facing a jam, I think these hands are actually folds. So if let's say we jam, okay, so Queen Queen 6 6 is a hand that wants to fold, which is a hand that is currently beating us. So we actually win a lot of money by getting a hand like Queen Queen 6 6 to fold. So you can see here how Queen Queen 6 6 actually has more equity than the hand that we are holding, but if you get a hand like that to fold, we are actually winning money. However, overall, I think when he does pot lead into us and we jam, right, I don't think he should be folding that often because he is really pot committed. But considering how he's 3-betting so wide and his range is really like all over the place at this point, I think when he pots, his folding percentage should be somewhere around 30%. And if he is never folding, then us jamming is really very valuable because we have a pair and a ton of straight draws, which might actually dominate some of his hands. So let's say if he has a hand like 7 6 4 3, he is really dominated. Or if let's say he has a hand like 8 9 6 4, which is a hand that he might be 3-betting and calling a 4-bet because he's so tilted at this point. So our hand is doing really well. So that's great. And if he decides to pot a hand like, let's say, kings, right, and he faces a shove, he's not in great shape against our hand, or like aces in general, because we are 4-betting a shit ton of aces. So as played, we jam, and he actually shows up with 4 diamonds, 6 diamonds, 7 clubs, and deuce clubs. What? What the fuck? Which is a really weird 3-bet call. This hand should actually just be a call to raise preflop and shouldn't be played like this. It's overvaluing his hand. So he calls and he only has 28% equity, and the turn is a 9 of hearts, so he is drawing dead at this point and we scoop the pot. Alright guys, so that's the end of today's video. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys prefer Omaha content over no limit content, then please do tell. If not, I'll be continuing with making no limit hold'em content and maybe occasionally some Omaha hand breakdowns. regarding the pots that I've played in the past. But if not, thanks so much for watching and do subscribe. Thank you.